Welcome, Ram fans, to Final Score. Crackers College Hoops. I'm Steve Ivey. How we feeling tonight, folks? 91-64. The Rams run away from the Bulldogs, deliver a masterclass, especially on the defensive side of the floor, as they jumped out to a big first half lead and went into cruise control the entire second half. Here's a comment. It seems as if Colorado State made some changes to their lineup. They have been playing a lot better. There's been a lot of things going on. Go Rams. Here we go. Jacob, go Rams is right. That was an absolutely dominant performance. I didn't do a preview of the game, but I talked a little bit on, I think I talked a little bit on Monday on my show with Brady about Fresno State and how good they look sometimes. They had first place Utah State down 17 points in the first half in Logan last weekend before they ended up losing by, I can't remember if it was 4 points or 6 points. They play usually with a lot of confidence. They play as if they're a really good team, and I kind of appreciate that. They play hard. They were reduced to rubble today by CSU. Let's be honest. They looked absolutely horrid. And that is the worst they've looked in all of their Mountain West games since their first game against San Diego State, which they lost by about 20 in Fresno. The Rams came out defensively and did what they needed to do. I've got to be honest with you. One of the joys, and I've talked about this at plenty of times, one of the joys is I get to go to practices. Nico and Coach and the coaching staff are very, very open about letting people in. You just have to be really, really a good person about not revealing and not talking about stuff until after the game. And I saw them work defensively, and I heard them talk over what to expect from Fresno State. And Fresno State's coach is a guy named Vance Wahlberg. Vance maybe he came from a junior college, actually coached a high school team. But he had previously coached at Pepperdine, but he is known as the creator of the dribble drive offense. And the dribble drive offense is something that is used in college and in the NBA. They also have a guy on their sidelines as an associate head coach named John Welch. John Welch worked for Calipari at Kentucky with all those great teams that the Calipari had that were going to Final Fours, and has worked with several NBA teams as well. And you've got a great coaching staff there that really knows what they're doing. And I talked to Nico about it, and he talked about how they're building a culture. But, especially, so the offensive side, they knew what they were going to get. They knew they were going to get a lot of guys trying to win one-on-one battles, get into the paint, and create a lot of rotation and get open looks, whether it was down low or whether it was on the perimeter. And everybody on the Ram team was challenged to defend the ball. If your man has the ball, your job is to guard the ball. But if you feel like you're losing the battle on the perimeter because of a screen, just call out a switch. And the switches were very, very effective. If you watch that first half, I believe they held Fresno State to 7 field goals in the first half. I think they only had between about the 16-minute mark and the 6-minute mark, I think they had 1 field goal. The Rams delivered a 10-minute masterclass in just how to keep them from shooting. And then on the offensive side, it was all about ball movement. Jake, here's something that Jake pointed out: 28 assists on 29 makes. 9 players with an assist, 5 players with 2 or more. Nice to see some flashes of previous year of offensive prowess. I want to get back to the comment that Mile High Minute made. Boy, I should be drinking orange juice, getting an endorsement. But this is a good point. Since the change to the lineup, they've been playing a lot better. There's only one change they've made, and that is getting Jalen Crocker Johnson into the 4 position. I will say this: he replaced Ethan Morton. He has a lot more firepower, a lot more offensive capability. We saw him from the perimeter. He made shot 4 for 7 on his threes. He's got a lot of range. He can also score inside. He's a good athlete, 6'8", 230. very bouncy, and I've been very, very high. But the issue with Croc was he spent the entire summer learning the 5 position because of injuries to Mbemba, and then Jurgensen was a freshman. They needed to prepare somebody as a 5. They didn't know if they were going to have Rashawn. So all of the work that Crocker Johnson did was at the 5. And then when Mbemba came back and got healthy, all of a sudden there's room for him to play the 4. Well, it's taken him time to learn, and he is still learning the position. Believe me, he is not anywhere near the polished, finished product that you're going to see as he plays more and more. But what we're starting to see is him figuring out both on the offensive and defensive side. That's one thing that's happened. The second thing that's happened, and if you watched on Monday with my show, I had Kyan Evans on, and if you can't see the improvement from Kyan Evans from the first 5 games or so to now, you're just not watching. Kyan is really gotten to the point. I've always talked about this. The kid had great instincts. It was just a matter of time before he could figure out how to match those instincts into how this offense is supposed to run. And you saw what he's capable of doing on minimal shots today. He really didn't shoot all that much. Let's see how many shots did he take. I'm gonna pull up the box score in a minute. Kyan Evans took all of two field goal attempts, made them both. They were both 3-pointers. He was 4 for 4 from the 3-point line. So you're talking about let's pull up the box score. You're talking about basically a perfect game. 10 points, 2 for 2 from the field, 4 for 4 from the free throw line, 7 assists against only 3 turnovers, and he played really, really good defense. 26 minutes plus 18. When I get to player of the game, we're going to have some fun here because there are all kinds of candidates for player of the game. And don't kid yourself, Kyan Evans is in contention for player of the game, even with only 10 points. Lee pointed out something here. Keyshawn and Jorgensen really good. Keyshawn best in tempo. When Keyshawn Johnson is on the floor with Bowen Bourne, there is a lot of speed out there, and I'm not talking about just raw speed, but speed of play. They really know how to move. And, you can, I know some people that are very critical of Bowen. And I will tell you right now, Bowen may not be the most natural defender, but Bowen is an absolute pest. And he knows how to make himself a pest. He knows how to get into passing lanes, get deflections. And when they get the ball turned over, that ball is flying down to the other end of the floor. And when he's out there with Keyshawn is flying out there. And Keyshawn scores at the rim quite a bit in transition. And so you saw really a devastating. I'm going to take a look at that box score. The bench was absolutely devastating today. 24 for 28, 38 points from the bench. I'd say that's a pretty good performance. 38 out of 91. We'll take that all day long. Points in the paint, a 70 possession game, 1.3 points per possession. Let's see. Fast break points, only 9. Probably Keyshawn on virtually all of them. Let me look at the split box and look at the points in the paint. Only 28-20. It felt like a lot more than that. And Fresno State actually outscored the Rams in terms of fast break points, 14-9. But I think if you looked overall, it's not just the free throw shooting. Fresno shooting 58% from the line. At one point, they were 10 for 22, I believe 11 for 24 at one point. So they got hot at the end. They actually shot threes really, really well, but boy, did they have a hard time shooting twos, only shooting 19 for 50, 38% overall, 7 for 14. So 12 of 36, 33% on their twos. That's great interior defense by CSU that got them dribble driving and isolated and missing. And then CSU was finishing off possessions with rebounds. They ended up with winning the rebound battle 38 to 33. So, I mean, all in all, I mean, just an absolute butt whipping. And let's see. Here we go. This is a good comment. Bourne and Keyshawn, I say, are keys for rest of conference season, as both are vets. I think there's some truth to that, but I will tell you right now that lineup, that nine worked really, really well. All four guys that came off the bench were very, very effective. Kyle Jorgensen was very good today. He also finished in double digits with what, 10 points? Let's see, Jorgensen, 10 points, 2 for 5, 6 for 7 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. You're talking about a great performance by a freshman playing. He played all of 16 minutes. I'll take 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in 16 minutes out of a big coming off the bench all day long. And Ethan Morton had a very good game as well. He fouled out, picked up some, I saw some tacky fouls, but he's not a scorer, but he had 4 points. He's not a dynamic rebounder. He had 4 rebounds. He's not the most creative guy. He had 3 assists. You're talking 4 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He fills up the box score. He had a very, very good game. And I will tell you right now, when that bench is operating like that, CSU is going to be very, very difficult to beat because that starting lineup is really starting to gel. They still have a ways to go. Mbemba was not as good at the rim as he's been, but he was good at filling up space and setting screens. Nick Clifford had one of the great easy games of all time. Nick played all of 23 minutes, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. 2 of the assists were absolutely exquisite in the second half. He was throwing no-look passes from 50-foot no-look passes that were setting up fast breaks, and it was a sight to behold. I don't know if you can really see that if you're watching on TV, but we're in the arena. He was in what I categorized as cruise control, and when he decided he wanted to score a little bit, he just started making everything down the stretch. So 6 for 9, 2 for 5. Ken Pom had him as the player of the game. And that's all done statistically. I can see why with filling up the stat sheet, but we'll talk about in a second. Nick with a comment here. Refs sure made use of their whistles. I should easily be able to get this show started at 9:30, and it was obvious. I mean, I even got out of there in a hurry out of Moby. I don't even spend much time after the game. All I did was talk to a few of the players, make sure I'm going to have Rashawn Mbemba as my guest on my Swallowpalooza Thursday show. I wanted to make sure we were lined up for that. And I wanted to make sure I gave some crap to Luke Murphy, walk-on Luke Murphy, one of the leaders of the scout team and one of the great scout team players. And this is a kid who makes everything in practice. If you saw him in practice, he'll have guys shaking their heads in practice with some of the shots he hits. And he didn't attempt a shot. And of course, I had to gas him about that. And Jorgensen looked at me and said, "We're all yelling at him to shoot. I don't know why he won't shoot." But refs made sure use of the whistles. Kyle getting Mountain West Freshman of the Year. He'll get some consideration. There's a couple of other really good freshmen, Jake. The kid at San Diego State, Taj DeGorville, has looked very, very, very good. And he had 13 against Boise State the other day. He looks very, very good too. But if Kyle keeps progressing, I will tell you this right now, whether he gets Freshman of the Year or not, I don't care. I love the young core that we're starting to see develop with this team. We've got some great veterans. There is no doubt about it. We've got some great veterans with players like Nick Clifford in his 5th year and Jalen Lake. I haven't even mentioned Lake. Lake had the quietest, really good game. He didn't take a lot of shots, but he sure looked good, and his defense was good. He was actually tracking. Lake didn't play much in the second half, and he didn't shoot much. But Lake had 5, 4, and 4 at halftime, and had he gotten really crazy aggressive and CSU needed him to get crazy aggressive, he was also looking at a potential triple-double. So I had 5, 4, and 4 at halftime. So anyway, he had a quiet, good game. But I'll start talking about the veterans. We've got good ones. The 2 leaders in in Clifford and Lake, and then coming off the bench, you got the Mortons and the Bournes, and then the Keyshawn Williams. But there's 4 other players in this 9-person rotation. 3 sophomores, 3 true sophomores, not redshirts, 3 true sophomores and 1 true freshman. You're talking about a really solid core of players. Fingers crossed we can keep these players together because they are really starting to progress, and we're seeing what they're capable of doing. It's been fun to watch. I really enjoyed the defense today. As I said, the game plan was really, really fun to watch come together when I was there on Sunday, and they executed absolutely beautifully. And then on offense, we saw a couple of new looks where you saw, and especially down the stretch, but you saw some big screens with the point guard dribbling off the screen. You saw Kyan Evans doing it. And then you saw these baseline cuts, and guys, Keyshawn Williams was shooting layups at will off the baseline, running out of that set. And it was funny. His cutting is starting to become elite as he figures out the offense. The kid, Keyshawn, is a tremendous scorer. We've known that. He averaged 18 points a game 2 years ago, scored a lot of points. The transition for him has been learning how to do it within the structure of an offense that shares the ball, and he's really starting to get it, folks. It's fun to watch when a guy gets 18 points on all of how many shots did Keyshawn take today? Keyshawn Williams took 11 shots, 7 for 11, 2 for 4 from 3. I will tell you right now, when you got a guy coming off the bench shooting 7 for 11 and overall and 50% from 3, I think we'd take that all day long. Like I said, the bench is really starting to figure it out. The speed that they play with, and the defense has been very, very good. Refs hopefully don't get lost in fog as they look blind with many of their calls. For those of you that aren't in Fort Collins, it's getting really foggy. It was a little tricky coming back home. I live on the southeast side of town. College Avenue was moving very, very slowly tonight. But I was able to make it home without any accidents. I was really disappointed in the sheer number of whistles, especially in the first half. Fresno shot 20 free throws in the first half. CSU shot 13, and Fresno 10 for 20. That's it. The fouls they were calling were not these hard fouls. If they put these refs in the Big East, those games would last 4 hours with the fouls they call. If they call the Big East games that way, it is ridiculous. I will tell you, Vern Harris did the same thing last week in the New Mexico Nevada game. The 2 teams between them shot 76 free throws in a single overtime game. So that was disappointing. And the other 2 refs seemed to be trying to do the same thing. Sometimes there were touches and you could call fouls, but it didn't affect the possession. It was maybe on a rebound where you'd see a touch, CSU contending for an offensive rebound and maybe getting a touch, and the defender would knock the ball to his own player and start out in transition. They'd blow a whistle. Just allow the transition to happen. It just gets old watching. You couldn't go 30 seconds without a whistle in this game, and it's not much fun to watch. They don't tell me the players don't like it, the coaches don't like it, but most of all, the spectators really don't like it. I guess if you're watching on TV, you can duck out, and it's not hard to go out and get a beer and not miss anything. Go to the refrigerator, but it was a little too much. Player of the game. Shoot me your players of the game. I'd love to hear. Here we go. I'll get to this in a second, Lee. Good crowd on Saturday. I haven't checked the scores. Somebody fill me in. Wyoming was up double digits on New Mexico at halftime, and I haven't been able to follow. I know Boise was about to tip off had just tipped off with UNLV and was up a little bit early, and Utah State was up about 8 or 9 at half on San Jose State. I don't have the time to check scores. Up 3 now. I assume that's Wyoming. That's an interesting game. I can't believe why New Mexico only had 18 or 19 points at the half. That's here we go. Chad, Wyoming up 48-45, 5 minutes left. Lobos getting out muscled, according to Jake. I'm going to go back to Chad. I got a note. Chad and I text usually. We're good friends. Chad sent me a text pregame that said, Fresno State looks like a AAU team from Compton. He's watching them during warmups. It turned out to be true. They looked like an AAU team from Compton. They were all over the place. And you know, it's this dribble drive offense is really, really interesting if you have players that can actually beat somebody off the bounce. They didn't have anybody. They had to go left, right, you name it. It was just kind of futile watching them try and score. Wyoming down 1, Lobos late. We'll see. Well, keep an eye on it. Getting back to Chad's comment, they had looked so good, Fresno against Utah State. They had Utah State. They were up 17 in the first half on Utah State and ended up only losing by about 4. They looked the exact opposite today. And if you go back and look at Fresno's record, Fresno doesn't lose. They've lost by a ton to San Diego State and BYU on the road. And that's it. They usually only lose by, 6, 10, 12. They've played some decent teams on the road and only lost by 5. Santa Barbara, they lost by 11 to Washington State, who's a good team, doing well in the WCC this year. Here we go. Pokes, Utah State pulled it out. Did they end up close too? That's crazy. Pokes playing tough without Agnew. Yeah, they've been without their best player, and they actually played really well in the second half against Air Force. I watched that game, and Wyoming is not. They aren't pretty, but they play hard and they play smart. And they are not going to let you score very easily at the rim. They're going to take fouls at the rim, and they don't let you shoot threes very easily. So they make you work hard for every point you get. So that'll be interesting. The Rams have them a week from Saturday up in Laramie. But as Lee pointed out, we need a good crowd against the running Rebels. They are a funny team. They don't beat the teams they're not supposed to, and they beat the teams they're supposed to. But they tend to make games closer than they should against bad teams, and they usually play teams really close that are good teams. They only lost by Dayton on the road by 1. Dayton's a very good team. They lost to Memphis by 4. They have some good players, and sometimes they get going and they can play really good. They got a great point guard in DJ Thomas. CSU's going to have their hands full. But anyway, I don't have much more to say. I am going to tell you, my son thought so. Kyan Evans, player of the game, he really drove the team beautifully today. That's what you need out of a point guard. Nick Clifford is far and away the best player on the team. And you can't convince me Jalen Lake isn't the second best player on the team. But when you get a point guard who plays like Kyan Evans did today, and maybe it was a little Monday morning cup of coffee magic having Kyan on the show. I love to take credit when I shouldn't. Kyan has been coming on. He's been averaging about 10 or 11 points a game. But it's the leadership, it's the defense, it's the getting the team into the sets, and it's playing at the right pace. That's the name of the game, is getting this offense moving at the right pace. Here we go. Evans becoming the point guard we need. Who's the unsung hero? Jake, tell me who you think the unsung hero was. I thought there were lots of good ones today. There's no doubt that some people played well. I've got an idea of who I would pick, but let me know who your thoughts are as the unsung hero. I don't want to take all the picks. Here we go. Sundance, have to say coach of the year so far. I kind of agree with that, and yet Jared Calhoun at Utah State's doing pretty darn well. They're undefeated. They're ranked in the top 25. They're heading to be about a 6 seed in the tournament. I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain. We'll see. They look awfully good, and you'd have a hard time convincing me that Calhoun isn't the coach of the year. But Sundance Wick certainly doing a great job. I will tell you right now, CSU, the coaching staff. You know how much I love Nico. This coaching staff has really come together, and we're seeing the improvements. I had hoped they'd be further ahead. I had Brady Hull ask me how I thought we would do in the non-con, and I honestly thought we'd be 8-3. We ended up 6-5. I didn't think we'd lose to Riverside, and I thought we were going to win one of the two games with either Washington or VCU. Everything else went pretty much the same as how I thought it would go, and so the 6-5. But there were circumstances. There were some some guys that like I said, Mbemba not being 100%. He's finally getting there. The rotation getting better with Croc learning how to play the 4, and Kai and Evans growing. We now have a strong starting lineup. And the bench is really, I laugh. You look at Keyshawn, averaged 18 points a game at Northern Illinois. Bowen Bourne has scored 1,500 points in his career coming into this season at CSU, and he's your 8th player or 9th player, and he's got 1,500 points under his belt. He's a hell of a player, and he's starting to get it too. So we're starting to see this bench. Jake says, got to be Keyshawn, ability to get to the rim. We need to balance the offense. Yeah, I would say Keyshawn. Keyshawn certainly was. He was a candidate for player of the game. It was a dominant team effort, and as you said, the 28 assists on 29 made field goals. It could have been even more had CSU. How many layups did they miss to start the second half? I thought that was kind of interesting, where they kept on missing. And Nico finally took a timeout and was very, very angry at about the 17-minute mark after Croc had missed a couple of shots, and then Mbemba had a wide open layup and blew it, and they didn't hustle back, and they gave up a 3, and that was enough for the coach to get a little upset, and I don't blame him. Yeah, I'd say Keyshawn for sure. Here we go. Lobo's rolling now, up 7 with 2.5 minutes to go. Lee pointing out Calhoun had Falslove and Martinez from the previous year. That's very true. But if you watch that team play, it's not just those two guys. He's really figured out some things with some transfers who came from lower profile conferences that have been very productive. And there's a kid on that team who was terrible, who is going to be 6th man of the year if they don't move him into the starting lineup, Carson Templin. If you remember him last year when he played at CSU, the kid couldn't run up and down the floor without tripping. Carson Templin had 18 and 10 in his last game coming off the bench. He has been the best 6th man in basketball in the Mountain West this year. He's been a very productive sophomore, and that's Calhoun. I've actually had conversations with Templin's. I've exchanged messages with Templin's dad, and he loves Calhoun and said the kid's confidence was shot last year with Danny Sprinkle. It happens a lot with certain coaches and certain players. They just don't get along. Calhoun came in, and Templin is an absolute beast. He plays a lot like Mbemba. He's not afraid to take threes. He nailed, I think, 3 threes in a row against was it San Diego State when they beat San Diego State. The kid has turned into a hell of a player. So I lean toward Calhoun Lee, but that's not a diss on Sonny Wicks. We'll see how Wyoming does as the season goes on. See if they can hang in there. They play tough. They play a style they aren't very deep, and they play a style where they might wear out as the season goes on because they do play so hard. So let's see how they hang in there. But he's done a great job for sure, Wick. So any other thoughts from anybody before I go? Big game on Saturday. Rams moved to 3-1. That will in conference 9-6 overall. that will put them in a good place where they will need the UNLV game to keep moving up the ladder, get that home win, and then set themselves up from here we go, the kid for Karate Kid, sweep the leg Templin. That's what he looked like last year. He's a heck of a player. Wait till he comes to Moby. I will tell you right now, he will be a handful for CSU. He's a good player. Came out of Texas, and like I said, struggled as a freshman. Has really come on. He's 6'8" and about 240 pounds, so about the same size as Rashawn Mbemba, and not afraid to shoot threes now. So it'll be a fun game when he comes. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully I'll get a chance to meet his dad. His dad has been really, really nice, exchanges and messages back and forth. I'm gonna call it a night in a second. Join me on Thursday night. I'm really looking forward to having Rashawn Mbemba. I don't know Rashawn really well. He is the absolute nicest, most polite kid, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about how he grew up playing basketball in Austria, and then how he got to CSU, and then his how he's made the transition, recovering from injury, and this year made the transition from part-time player to full-time starter and key cog in that starting lineup. So I'm really looking forward to that on Thursday. And then Saturday, I have not decided if I'm going to do a CSU post-game show. I probably will. The game is at 2 against UNLV. I'd started at 4:30, but one of the things we're having fun with is a Mountain West show that I do with my friend Tom Moser. We had fun on Saturday night. We covered all the games on Saturday night, all 5 games, and we did about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and it was a lot of fun. We had so many people joining in the fun from all around the Mountain West, and so I'm still trying to decide if I want to do a CSU only show or if I just want to lump it in. I'll talk to Tom. I'll probably end up doing a CSU only show. I like to do it. It's fun. But make sure you join us on Friday night as well. We'll cover all 5 games. CSU a little less so if I do a post game show on CSU. But you've got Boise State at Utah State, and you've got San Diego State at New Mexico as 2 very, very big, pivotal games. In addition to CSU and UNLV, that'll be a big one as well. So anyway, join me again. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for participating. Lee, one final comment. Only up to 89. What's interesting is, that I check the net every day. CSU has moved into the top 100, which is really, really good to make them a quad 2. They're a quad 2 team for opponents. And you always want to be in the top 100 in the net. And if you get a worst case, top 135, and had Wyoming won, Wyoming might have moved into the top 135 in the net. And the reason why that's important is it becomes a quad 2 game up in Laramie. When you play them, you can get a quad 2 win by beating Wyoming and Laramie. And it doesn't look like such a bad loss like it did last year when they were operating in the 200-something range, and CSU had a loss up there that almost cost them the tournament. So you kind of want Wyoming to do well. There's so many bad opportunities throughout the conference with Air Force and San Jose State and Fresno State are sitting down in the 250 to 300 range. They're all quad 4 games. So we kind of root for Wyoming, except when they play CSU. We want them to do really, really well. So anyway, that's it. I'm going to call it a night. Thanks, everybody, for participating. Once again, the final score, Colorado State 91, Fresno State 64. Have a great evening, everybody. Go Rams.